Hi, I am Dr. Christine Anderson, or Dr. Chris as my patients call me. And today I am going to look at the aspect of detoxification from using homeopathy. So, we have been doing this whole month of March with different ways to help support our body systems for number one, helping to figure out forms and sources of toxins, so you can go back and watch that video, as well as how we can continually detox our systems while we're staying away from the toxins. And an avenue that a lot of people don't think about is homeopathy. So, a lot of people don't know this, but besides having my Doctor of Chiropractic degree and my board certification in Pediatrics and Pregnancy, and my certificate in functional neurology and childhood developmental disorders, I am also a homeopath. So I have my diploma in homeopathy, and I have been using homeopathy in my practice for a very, very long time. So I can't wait to share this with you. So let's dive right in. So, one of the great things about homeopathy is that it is based on energetic principles. In other words, you are, rather than using a substance directly, because of how homeopathics are prepared, you are actually using the energy of that substance. So, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. But because of this aspect, they tend to be a lot safer. So rather than like an herb of the same plant that might be a homeopathic preparation, an herb is a little bit more direct acting. So I'm going to just give you a little brief intro into homeopathy. You can go to my website to learn more, and I definitely do want to do a video more in depth about homeopathy. But encapsulated, it is based on the law of similars. So what does this mean? This means that in a regular dose of the substance of whatever those symptoms create, a homeopathic prepared dose, which is very diluted as well as succussed, that means it's being struck against something to release that therapeutic energy. So there's serial dilutions of the remedy, but that diluted substance is going to help with the body's healing of whatever that full strength thing creates. So, for instance, coffee, I know if I drink coffee, it will keep me up because I don't drink a lot of coffee or caffeine. So, if I am having a problem with insomnia and not being able to sleep, I can take a homeopathic prepared dose of coffee called coffea creda, and I can take that to help my body with sleep. An onion, if you're cutting it, it will make your eyes tear and your nose run. At least I know it does me. If you are having symptoms where you have your eyes running and your nose running, allium cepa, or the homeopathic prepared dose of onion, may help with the symptoms. So those are just some examples to give you an idea of this. The other aspect that's a bit different than regular either medicine or an herb or a supplement even is the law of minimum dose. What this means is that the more you dilute a remedy, it actually becomes more therapeutically energized. And I put more effective, and that's really a misnomer because lower potencies can also be effective, but it becomes having a higher energetic property to it. So I have there most homeopathics after about, I think it's 6x or 6C. X means 10 time dilution, C means 100 times. But somewhere in that realm, once you get past about 6 dilutions, you're going to not have any of that physical substance remaining. In other words, no coffee will be found in that homeopathic preparation. No onion will be found in the allium cepa preparation if you are diluting it past 6 times. So this is, and it's based on something called Avogadro's number. Go look that up if you're interested. But this is really important because of this. Some people will say, well, there's nothing in there. How does it work? Well, it's because of these energetic principles of basically, I liken this to akin the homeopathic remedy, giving you a little tap on the shoulder. Hey, pay attention over here. This is what you need to take care of. Now, one of the things that is very, I would say, difficult for people to do homeopathy on their own, especially if you're looking at single remedies, is that this is based on symptoms, what makes things better, what makes things worse, and even the person's personality. So somebody with a particular problem might be given one remedy and another person another. So sometimes people have trouble finding the right remedy. And look, I studied this for like 3 years, so I can understand where it can be very difficult. But this is why it can be an issue where people say, oh, well, homeopathy doesn't work. Well, if you don't get the right remedy, yes, it will not work. However, it's typically safe. So if you are using the wrong remedy, you are usually not going to suffer from it. I won't go into proving a remedy right now, but just let's say essentially these are really safe. I know my children would get into my homeopathy sometimes and drink the whole container because it's sugar pellets, and nothing would happen to them except I would go to use the remedy when I needed it and there would be nothing in the bottle. But that's another story for another day. All right, so let's carry on here talking a little bit more in depth about homeopathy and detoxification. Again, what we're doing is we're helping with the body's normal detoxification processes. It's something that's going to just sort of, again, remind the body that it has a job to do. Now, you can use this specifically to support the detoxification organs and systems like the liver, the kidney, the lymph, the skin, the intestines, the lungs. So you can look specifically at an organ system. And I'm just going to really briefly mention about nosode sarcosa miasms because you might see these. We're not going to really go into depth on this today, but you can also use, besides using plants, minerals, animals, you can also use diseased tissue and organs. And here also you can use preparations actually made from vaccines themselves, so diluted vaccines. Sarcodes, or it's also called organotherapy, where you're using healthy organs, sorry, typo there, tissues and secretions, and miasms, and this is a whole system where you're working actually on the genetic level of things passed down through our genes. So I won't go into too much of them, but in case you see these things, this is what they are. I will talk about gemotherapy because when we're talking about detoxification, this is something that can be really helpful because gemotherapy generally is used for drainage. And if our organs of elimination and detoxification become congested, then they're not going to be able to work as well. So gemotherapy can be really useful. This is taking the buds of plants and making a preparation. Now, the dilution factor is very low. It's only one-time dilution. So you will still have some of the plant material, if you're analyzing it, in the remedy. So I look at it as kind of an offshoot of homeopathy. It's a little less finicky than homeopathy as far as energetic principles go. It's a little bit more tangible and concrete, somewhere between homeopathy and, let's say, an herb. But so super helpful with detoxification. So let's start off with looking at homeopathy for liver and gallbladder support. I kind of broke it down this way just because there are so many remedies, and the thing with homeopathy, again, when we're looking at single remedies, is that one remedy can be useful for so many systems of the body. So in other words, not only can Nux vomica be useful for helping to support the liver and gallbladder, but let's just say you're having an issue with vomiting. in particular instances, it can be useful for that. So this is not a complete list. If you're interested in a remedy, you should look it up and look and see what the particular systems it's used for, as well as the constitution of the person, because let's look at Chelidonium majus here. It can be helpful for drainage. It can be very helpful in protecting the liver. It's also helpful for those people who have used drugs, whether it's medical drugs, so prescription or recreational. And it can be helpful for people who are having hepatitis. Now, the person that it's going to be most helpful for is going to be somebody with an aggressive and sort of domineering personality who's really more practical and linear rather than being emotional. And that's, again, a very small snippet, because there's really like a couple of pages in what's called the Materia Medica when we start talking about these single remedies. But what you can do is look them up and see if it fits your symptomatology, what makes you better or worse, your personality, and that type of thing. Nux vomica is one that is really pertinent to our sort of 21st century life. It's great for that type A personality who's go, 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 and also someone who overindulges in food and drink and drugs, and you know, they're just going for it. And they also tend to be, you know, like the executive, more sedentary. And then they go out after work and, you know, tie one on, and then they're not feeling so hot the next day. So this is really helpful for stimulating the liver to do what it needs to do in detoxification. Berberis vulgaris is helpful with uric acid, which is a byproduct of purine breakdown. That's a type of product or amino acid found in, especially in red meats. It can be helpful for someone with gallstones. Taraxacum officinale, if you're having gallbladder attacks or have gallstones, it might be helpful. And here we go again with some things that might make it better or worse. So it's worse with rest. So if you're sitting down or laying down and your issues are worse, then this remedy might be helpful for you. If resting helps it, then this remedy probably isn't going to be helpful. And then when I put in quote marks, cool fingertips, when you read some of these things, they use antiquated language. I mean, this has been used since the turn of the 19th century in general, but even, you know, before then. But Hahnemann in Germany is the one that really brought homeopathy to the forefront back. It was around 1910, I believe, in Germany. And, you know, so cool fingertips. What can I say? Some weird stuff. And then Cardus marianus can be helpful if you're having issues with liver cirrhosis, and this can typically be from people who have been consuming alcohol. And lachesis for those with a fatty liver doesn't have to be based with alcohol use. And I talk about this in the detoxification program, so you can have a look at that. And then with gemotherapy, we've got rosemary, hazel, and juniper. So there's some gemotherapy suggestions there. Now for kidney support, right underneath these, by the way, I have symptoms of dysfunction, dark circles under the eyes, water retention, urination issues, cystitis, gout, those type of things that might be affecting kidney detoxification. You don't have to have those. You can have other things as well. These are just some common symptoms that I've written down. And really, it's based on what the kidney does. So you really don't want to wait until you have symptoms. You want to make sure you're taking care of your body so that your kidney is super happy. I've written down, again, some single remedies like uva ursi that helps with keeping the urinary tract clear and can be helpful if you are suffering from cystitis. Solidago virgaria, based on what the urine looks like. Same thing with Juniperus communis. we're basing on what the urine looks like, and then some things will be easier than others. If you have difficulty, probably the Solidaga will help. Again, Berberis vulgaris. Oh, I misspelled that too. Sorry about that, guys. So not only helping the liver, but also helping the kidney. And pathognomonic here of when it might be helpful would be rapid change of symptoms, pain all over the body, and repeated kidney stones. With gemotherapy, we've got juniper and birch that can be helpful. And then we've got lymph support. So symptoms of dysfunction, especially if you have swollen lymph nodes, maybe you've got aching soft tissues or sore tissue under your skin, that might be a sign that your lymph is backed up and you are having a problem. So one of the single remedies that can help is Pulsatilla nigricans, also known as the windflower. And I put polycress there because that is a type, there are certain remedies in homeopathy they call polycress because they have so many uses that it's almost like, well, give this one a try. So Pulsatilla is really great. I use this a lot with kids that are teething because, you know, just think of a clingy, cringy, whingy, crying child who's miserable, clinging to their mom because they're teething and they're cranky. But with the windflower, think of the wind blowing through and then all of a sudden everything is sunny and that clingy, cranky child goes into a bright, sunny one. So very changeable behavior. And this is something that is worse with warmth. So that would aggravate the condition. Phytolacca I use this a lot with new moms with mastitis, and it can be helpful for other inflamed glands and for breast health. Camphor, also good for breast tonsils. You might have a person's sensitivity who has a sensitivity to cold, and then anxiety at night when they are left alone. Calcarea carbonicum is actually just calcium carbonate, and usually in the homeopathic world it's made from oyster shells. Again, very diluted, so you get no oyster shell in there. It's just the energetic properties. This is great in general for any swollen glands, and the person that this is most likely to help is responsible, dependable, but at the same time overwhelmed by all they have to do. And then gemotherapy-wise is going to be birch and ash, and those are ones that you can use. So I just want to talk a little bit about detoxification from vaccines because it can be a little bit tricky. A lot of times there's the heavy metals in the vaccines, but it could be the actual vaccine component. There's so many components in there. And in the late 1800s, they would use the plant, the Thuja occidentalis, or tree of life, to successfully treat adverse reactions to the smallpox vaccine. Well, today, I find it still helpful to use in children that are having issues with vaccine reactions, but it might not be as effective as it previously was, just because there's so much going on in our world that wasn't going on in the 1800s. I mean, there's a lot of good things in a good way, a lot of nutrition and sanitary actions, but on the other hand, we have a lot of different stressors. So I still use Thuja just because it can be so helpful in those instances, but I also will use combination formulas that actually contain the homeopathic preparations of the individual vaccines. So that's just something to know, and I mentioned that in the beginning when we started. All right, so how do you take homeopathy? We'll talk a little bit here about the constitutional remedy. I've got a single remedy there, and it's in a container that dispenses sugar pills. And this is a really common way of taking homeopathy. You can get homeopathic preparations that are in a liquid alcohol base, and I'll talk about one that I use in a second, but most of the time you're going to see them in the sugar pellets. And The thing with homeopathy is that it is very, very sensitive to energetic, the energy of the world, right? Frequency is everywhere. And so you really have to baby it if you don't want it to lose its potency, to use its therapeutic properties. So you want to keep it away from heat and light and moisture. I keep my homeopathic remedies in a second bathroom that we don't really shower much in it, away from my herbs and essential oils or anything smelly. And when you take it, you want to make sure that you do not touch the remedy. So there's a dispenser in the cap that you just put how many you want in the cap, and then you just flip it in your mouth. Don't touch it, like gum it up, and let the remedy go underneath your tongue and let it stay there. Now for kids, they may suck on it or bite them, whatever. It's not a big deal. But for kids, you can also melt those homeopathic pellets in some water or a glycerin water preparation that will preserve it a little bit, but not as much as alcohol. So you can do it as you use it. You don't want to mix it with food. You want to take it 10 to 15 minutes away from anything in your mouth, food, brushing your teeth, drinking anything besides water, because it will affect how it's acting. It's not going to do anything wrong. It just will make it less effective. And then when I travel, it's susceptible to maybe going through x-ray, and if you're flying, you are exposed to radiation up in the air. So I have to put my homeopathic remedies in a lead bag that is used for photographic film. That used to be that you put in your camera, if they even make them anymore. But the other really tough thing, like I said, when people are trying to pick a single remedy, is you've got to look at what's making you better or worse. What's your personality? What's going on maybe in your other systems besides what you want to work on? Because if you don't use the right remedy, it's not going to work. There's different potencies. That's another thing. We've got the 30C on there. So for the more acute use, you are probably going to use a higher remedy. I didn't finish my thought there. Interesting. So usually you will see them ranging from like 6C, you might see 200C. I like to use, in general, it's safe to look around 30C because that's somewhere in the middle, because you don't want to aggravate a problem going on and create more of a problem. So when you are sort of a novice at this, 30C is a good place to start. And you want to take the remedy as often as what's going on. So if you have an acute issue, let's say you had for a fall or something like that, and you were taking a remedy, you might want to take it like every hour or maybe even 15 minutes if you have something really happening very quickly. But if it's something chronic, you might take a higher dose remedy and take it less often. So this is why it can be a little tricky to work with constitutional remedies, and it is really helpful to work with somebody that does understand homeopathy, or get yourself a book, do a little reading. You can certainly contact me. I can help you out with that. But this is where it gets into the art of how you use homeopathy. Now, this is why I really kind of like combination remedies, especially for people who are trying to do it on your own, right? Because what you're going to do is you're going to have a combination of a lot of the remedies that I talked about. In addition to, here we also have supporting the colon and the lungs, which are other pathways for eliminating toxins. So I really like this kit by, well, it used to be Heal. Now they were bought out by Metanatura. So still great. It comes in 3 liquid bottles, and there's a whole system that they talk about how to use it. And when you're using the combination remedy, it can still be effective. You'll hear, classical homeopaths saying, it has to be one remedy at a time. But listen, it's really worth it to try it if you're doing this on your own and you're kind of stuck on how to begin. because it really can be a great way to work on this energetic level, as well as doing some of the other things that I've talked about. So this Body Anew program is really great, and I've done it myself because, you know, I would still have to sit there and go through and see which remedy I would need to support which organ, especially when you're doing it for proactive, preventative, when you don't really have a systemic breakdown issue yet, which is one of the best times to do detoxification. And then gemotherapy typically comes in a liquid. It's got an alcohol and glycerin base, but this is a little less finicky too than homeopathy, and is also a really great place to start. And you take 1 to 2 droppers twice a day, morning and night, and it really depends on how old you are. So the younger you are, if you're a child and you're wanting to support a system, then they're only going to do a dropper, or maybe even less depending on how young they are. And it's okay to take with food and drink, so it's a little less finicky in that regard as far as those energetic issues. So you can put it in your smoothie if you want, or your water. It doesn't really matter. But like I said, these are so great for drainage that it is really worth a note looking at these. And they are made by Boron as well. All right, so that brings me to the end. I know this is, you know, we just sort of dipped our toe into the world of homeopathy with detoxification, and I would love to go into it deeper. But if you want specific help, well, you can reach me at my website. I've got some more information on homeopathy there, and I will be doing more videos in the future on it because it is really such a great healing modality. And on my full script program, you can get 10% off your full script order. And I have created a homeopathic detoxification protocol in full script. So you can go into that. I'll put the link in the description. You can go to that link, have a look at, I've put the different remedies I've talked about. I've put the Body Anew and the gemotherapy, so you can see if there are things that resonate with you to try out. All right, everybody, have a great week, and I will see you next Tuesday on Dr. Christine Anderson Chiropractor YouTube channel, 6:30 p.m. Pacific time. Give me a thumbs up if you found this helpful, and share with your friends, subscribe so that you know when I'm posting videos. All right, see you next time.